In this video, we're going to put together probably my favorite card of the new bunch that we're putting out for Christmas in July. And it combines what I would consider, I guess, our paperscapes and it combines a paperscape. It's kind of like a box card and a regular card. So it's a little different, but I think you're really going to love it. So we're going to start off, as we usually do, just kind of taking care of some small things and doing some piecing, getting rid of, just working on things methodically and kind of getting all the major segments together so that we can just assemble it all in one fell swoop. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put together the little insert. You can see there's a nice little cottage in the woods, the snowy woods. Okay, so we're going to take this piece here, we're going to glue this right onto this little structure here. Okay, so we'll begin by just getting our glue on the happy little trees here. And that is an ode to Mr. Ross. Okay, so and then just work that glue around the perimeter here. Now this is a glitter paper, so I can go a little bit thicker and not worry about it getting warped. But what we do want to do here is just make sure that we get everything nice and aligned. So I'm looking at the trees and making sure that this piece that I'm gluing is sitting right on top of that back layer. And the rest of it should just kind of fall into place. You'll see here that the very edges of this pretty much butt up against the little score lines there. That's what you want your end result to look like as well. Okay, so we've got that, and next we're going to put the little pieces on the house. We've got two tones here. We're going to start with the lighter red first. Close this drawer. And I'm just going to use a series of little dots here since it is a pretty delicate little piece. And these dots will go a long way holding this all in place. And you just want to lay that down. It's kind of like a little puzzle piece. It should fit nice and flush against that little snowdrift there. Okay, so that's in place. Next we'll take the darker red, at least in my case it's a darker red, yours might be a different color. And we're going to put that on top of the layer that we just glued down. Just match up the little holes for the windows. There we go, just like that. And then we have a snowy little roof that goes on top to cap it off. And just doing little dots. Dot, dot, dot. And just line that up. And there we have our beautiful little house. Pardon my head here. I want to make sure that I get it properly aligned there. There we go. Okay, so there is that. And that is it for this section here. So we're done with that. We can move that off to the side for now. Next, we're going to take a look at this layer. And this is, this is kind of like the main structure or the main mechanism, so to speak. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some overlays on top of this. This first one is going to go on and it's going to be flush with, you can see how this is cut out here. Okay, so, and this piece should be symmetrical, so it shouldn't matter if you do it this way or the other way. Yeah, it works the same. It is a symmetrical piece. So we're going to glue this down like so. Okay, so let's flip this over. And let's get our glue on this section here. Just focus on making sure that initially you're getting good coverage on the glue out to the perimeter, the very edges here. And then we'll throw a little bit more along the inside here and kind of work these little curves here where we have these points just to make sure that that doesn't come peeling back, and then just fill in the gaps with a little more glue there. Okay, so this, again, just want to match this up with the existing little cutout in there. It should line up exactly, just like that. Give it a little nudge, whichever way you need to nudge it to ensure that it is lined up accurately. And then also, you can kind of run your finger along the top or give it a little nudge downward, whichever direction you need to go to make sure that it's nice and aligned. There we go. That looks good. And just make sure that it's all making good contact. And then we've got another little overlay, and you can see that I've embossed this one with a nice little dot pattern. And this is going to leave a little bit of that color that's underneath this showing right along the inner edge here. And then you're going to have a nice even border going all the way around as well. So let's get this glued down. And the embossing that we added to this makes it look like, kind of like it's snowing. So a nice snowy little scene. And this just really adds to the overall feel. These are really nice colors that Diana picked out. It's kind of what you would probably see during a wintry sunset. Those beautiful purples and pastel-y colors. Nice wintry pastels. Okay, so again, when you put this one down, just make sure that you do have a little bit of like an inset, a little border on the inside. Make sure it's nice and centered, nice and even all the way around. There we go, just like that. So you can see what that looks like. Beautiful. All right, now we do have two little gold stars that we're gonna put here, okay? The smaller one is gonna go on the second star from the right, and the larger star is gonna go on the second star from the left, okay? So I'm just gonna put a few tiny little dots of glue on this thing. You don't need a lot. And thin that out so it doesn't go shooting all over the place. There we go. Get that nice and aligned with that shadow layer there, just like that. I'll grab the other smaller star and just a couple little, maybe two little dots of glue will do. And get that in place. It's kind of tiny. If it helps, you can use your little pick-me-up tool if you have one, or maybe some tweezers, whatever it is that you use to get these little guys in position. Okay, but there you have it. So that's that. Okay, and we can kind of put that off to the side for now, let that cure, and we can focus on the actual card base now. So this is the actual card base, this is the front, this is the inside. Okay, so actually before we do that, we're going to take this piece, and this little tab here is going to get glued right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do that now. We'll get our glue on this large tab, and I'm going to spread that glue out to the very edge here. Make sure that got a nice clean seam. Okay, and I'm going to do it this way just to make sure that I get it aligned as accurately as possible. Actually, this might be easier to do it flat. Here we go. Hopefully I did that right. I think I did. I'm going to fold it over onto itself. There we go. Hopefully it's not upside down. There we go. So that's what it should look like. So this is where we joined it right here at this tab. Ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to take this and glue it right here, but not quite yet. Okay, so let's open this up, and now we can put our sky in place here. I had to get that little tab in place first, and now this is a really thin piece of paper here, so I don't want to overdo it on the glue because that will show through. So I am just going to go very thin here. This is like, I want to say this is probably like 60-pound paper, maybe even less than that. So I don't want to overdo it with the glue here because that will warp the paper. all that moisture. Just gonna go very easy on the glue here. Okay, and I'm not even worried about putting glue in the center of that. Like I said, I don't want to ruin this sheet. It's very thin. Okay, get that nice and centered right in that section there. And I'm gonna press that glue, get that nice and thin so it does not warp this paper whatsoever. Okay, now most of this is gonna be hidden, so if it's not perfect, it's not a big deal. Okay, so now we're gonna build the little background scene, and we're gonna start off with the larger piece, and then you're gonna put the smaller piece right on top of it. So you've got kind of a two-toned thing going on here. So let's get our glue on this larger piece first. And I believe that this sky paper is from a DCW V-Stack. If not, it's probably, I wanna say it might be Recollections. Okay, so we're just gonna match this up against the sides and the bottom. Just make sure that the sides and the bottom are nice and flush and lined up. Okay, then we'll take this piece and we're gonna glue that right on top of the piece that we just glued down. Okay, and again, just using the corners, the sides, and the bottom as our guide. And these two little hills or mountains here, this layer should sit right on top of that as well. And that's how you know that you've got it in the right spot. Okay. All right, so looking good so far. That's beautiful. Beautiful colors. Okay, so we're not ready to close this just yet, but we will be pretty soon. Also, on the back of the card, and this is the back here, we're going to add this little piece here where you can do some stamping or some journaling. You can write a little sentiment, whatever it is you want to do. Let's just get that glued into place. It's a nice little elegant touch on this card. Beautiful. And I have to say, kudos to Diana for these brilliant designs. It's her first bundle design for Dreaming Tree, and I'm very impressed with what she came up with here. So you just want to get this nice and centered. Make sure that you've got this going straight up and down. If you have a little ruler, it may help to kind of use some of the lines to help you get it nice and centered. That's perfect. Okay. All right, so getting there. I'm gonna open this up so that sits nice and flat for us. And now what we're gonna do, now we have this little piece of vellum here that we're gonna glue down here. Okay, and it's gonna kind of create like a frosty glass sort of look. And then we're gonna cover that up with another layer. Okay, so you can see how cool that's gonna look. But first off, we need to get this glued down. And I think, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna probably just focus on gluing just the perimeter here. I don't really want to worry too much about, well, actually, let me see here. I suppose we could throw a little bit of glue in the center there. That's all gonna be covered up anyway. So let's do this. Let's do a little bit around the perimeter first. Okay. And then I'm just going to do a few dots throughout the joy caption just to make sure that this vellum isn't moving around too much. And then maybe here in the little crosshairs of the window. And just make sure that you get it nice and as centered as you can so that you've got that nice and covered up, just like so. Okay. All right, so that's in place nicely. There we go. And fold that back over. We can take this piece and we're going to glue this down onto the face again here to cover up that vellum. Okay, now we're going to need to put glue on pretty much this entire thing here. So just be patient here. But yeah, you do have to kind of work quickly because we got a lot of area to cover. So do your best, and if things don't stay down first time around, you can always use my little scrap paper technique to fix any little areas that might be kind of sticking out. But we'll get it going. We'll make it work. Yeah, this, I've mentioned this before, but if you use a spray adhesive, you can totally do that with this piece. Just make sure that you get the repositionable type, because otherwise, well, if you don't use the repositionable stuff. Once you commit, there's no going back. Okay, so I'm looking up here at the top, making sure that this is nice and lined up. Oh, come on, don't do this to me now. Oh, geez. Yeah, focus on getting that top part lined up, and then the rest of it should just kind of fall into place. And I got a feeling that I may be doing some cleanup here because this glue is already starting to dry before I had to lift it up. But that's okay. Maybe not. You know what? That might actually work. There we go. That's really pretty. Okay, I'm going to check my work here in just a second. I want to keep pressing down while I can. There we go. And you know, wow. Well, that actually worked out nicely. Cool. Okay, so that's that. Now we do have this little gold piece that's going to go up here. This is embossed. So let's get that glued down. And then we have one more piece of gold trim that goes around our little, this is a lantern actually. So it's going to go around the entire perimeter. And this embossing folder, this really, really embosses things. I mean, this is probably one of the thickest embossing folders I've ever seen. This is a Sizzix embossing folder. It's like almost like a weave, like a basket weave sort of texture. Looks really cool. Okay, there we go. Get that into place. Kind of flattened it out a little bit, but it's still brilliant. Okay, now I'm going to take this, whoops, I'll take this gold trim. This is going to be the perimeter of our little lantern. So let's get our glue on this guy here. We'll keep on cruising here with our glue on this nice little gold overlay. It might help to just leave this on the table here. You know what? I hate doing that because if I miss, I end up getting glue all over my table and then it just starts making a mess. I'd rather just hold it up in the air. It's a thin little piece here, so it's a little difficult to keep it steady while you're applying your glue. So don't get frustrated. It's just the nature of the beast, as they say. Okay, I'm looking at the bottom here, the bottom and the corners, using this as kind of my guide for the initial placement, because if this is nice and flush down here, as well as on the sides, the rest of it, you know, is in the correct spot. Just run your fingers along the entire perimeter here. That looks great. Make sure everything's making good contact. Beautiful. Okay, this is where we can take our joy and get that glued down. Now we've got like a two-toned gold silver sort of look, and you want the silver kind of almost creating a shadow layer or a shadow behind the gold. So you'll see it, the silver appears usually on the right-hand side of the entire caption. So you don't want it like this, where it's coming on the left. You want the shadow or the silver area, the silver portion of this, sticking out on the right, okay? So we're gonna glue the gold to the silver. And I'm gonna do that using a series of little dots. And just keep in mind that there's no right or wrong way to apply glue. It's personal preference. I started off with dots, but now I'm doing lines and I'm kind of moving things around, especially in the thicker areas. I think the dots are more useful in little thin areas. I'll move this out of the way so I don't accidentally get a blemish on it from the glue. Okay, so I'm literally just gonna pop this on there and we'll figure out where exactly it needs to go. It might help to turn it around. Just take a look at where it is, and that's good right there. So again, just want to make sure that that gold is sticking out on the right-hand side. And that's how you know you've got it in the right spot. That looks great. Okay, so there's our two-tone joy, and of course that is going to get glued right onto the front of the card. And again, starting off with some dots, and now moving into little pigtail squigglies. And don't worry about getting glue on every single square inch of this. They're all kind of working together, holding their own weight, and as a team, they're going to keep this in place nicely. So we just need to line this up with the white shadow area on the actual card base. That looks great. I think I got that right. Pardon my head there. Beautiful. Okay, so there's the front of the card. Very classy. And then, of course, because of the vellum, you get a little bit of the tone coming through from that. And it's actually going to look even cooler here in just a minute when we get this all glued into place as well. You can see how that's going to look. Okay, so we're actually ready to close this up now. All right, and we're going to accomplish that. And this piece here, we're going to slide this in once this is all in place. So grab your glue. Let's get glue on this tab here. And don't be afraid to go a little bit heavier with the glue on this, because once we get it glued, we're going to fold it flat and kind of let it figure out where it wants to sit optimally. So, all right, so this is folded over. We're going to let this kind of rest flat like that. And then I'm going to take the front of the card, make sure that you're pushing down on this, and that this little tab down here, that this is also nice and flush there. Okay, and just kind of push that up against the card, making sure that it's making good contact, and then you can actually push this down flat and just press here with your palm. I don't like using my fingers because it's too much pressure in one specific area. I've dented so much paper and creased it by doing that. Okay, and now when you open it, it should make it pop out. Now we do want to be a little patient here and let this really set. We want that hinge to be completely dry before we put our little house insert in there. In the meantime, while that's drying, there's a beautiful poinsettia that we're going to pop on the front of the card. And the assembly of this is very simple, actually. Let me take a look at something here real quick. If you want, you can certainly ink this. You don't have to. I inked I inked everything. I usually ink it anyway. Okay, so we're going to take the, let's see here. Yeah, we're going to take the green layer. Green layer is going to go on top of the lighter layer. Okay, so we've got 2 layers here, and all we need to do is just glue it down on this little circle there. So just throw a little bit of glue right on that circle, take your darker layer and place it on there, and just make sure that it's nice and lined up. This is going to be kind of just free flowing here. And if we want, we can kind of train these things a little bit just to, you know, give them a little bit of dimension. Now, if you want, just for the sake of keeping this safe, you can throw a little bit of glue right on the tip and just kind of glue the tips together. Okay, move this out of the way and throw a little bit of glue right there, just on the tip of this one. Just kind of dab that a little bit, and then there we go. Just like that. Okay, And again, if you want to add a little bit of dimension to this, grab yourself a dowel. Chances are, if you're sending this out, it's probably going to get flattened. So, I mean, it may be kind of counterproductive at this point, but you can certainly just take a dowel and just kind of wrap these little, I don't know if these are like furs. Just kind of wrap them around the dowel just to kind of bring them to life a little bit so they're not so flat. It's almost like you're curling your hair. Just grab a couple of these little needles and just wrap them around the dowel, and you can see how it kind of raises them up a little bit. Okay, so now as far as the poinsettia goes, you've got 3 layers. Well, actually, we got to start with the leaf here. So this is the leaf, and you can see there's little score marks going through the center. What you do is simply take and fold and just kind of pinch the tip. Okay, like so. And just kind of pinching the tip, and that's giving it nice dimension there. And let's see here. So what we're going to do, this guy here is going to be glued down roughly about here, I'd say. And we're gonna zot this or pop dot it so that we don't have to worry about if we want to move it later. So that's going to go about here. And we want these 3 leaves to, it's going to go like this. So you've got one coming down, one going out this way, and one kind of going up to the side. So throw a little bit of glue right here on this little circle. Now these little cones, this little fir, this evergreen portion is not glued down. I have not glued it down yet. Okay, but that's going to go right about there. Make sure you got it nice and centered on that little circle. So that when we put this down, it's going to be like that roughly. Yep, just about like that. And then actually, let me turn this a little bit. Bring that in a little bit. So essentially, this leaf right here is going to be in the center of these 2 little firs. Evergreens, whatever you want to call them. And that's roughly what it should look like, okay? So now that that's in place, we can take our actual poinsettias now. There's 3 layers, and we're just going to stack them one on top of the other. And what you want to do, kind of like we did with the leaves, just want to take and pinch at the score marks, and then pinch the tip to form the actual poinsettia, give it some nice dimension. Okay, I've already done it to the middle piece. And what you want to do is we're going to throw a little bit of glue on the back of the middle piece here. We're going to pop it in the center of the larger piece, but we want to offset this so that they're not sitting right on top of each other. You want to rotate it a little bit so that you're getting as much of the little petals as possible. So they're not kind of fighting for space. Again, just a simple offset. You're just rotating it a few degrees to offset it so they're not sitting right on top of each other. I want this poinsettia to look nice and full. Okay, so now we're going to take the smallest layer, same thing, just take and pinch each of the petals. It's really quick. And I did ink this with a little bit of purple. Red just wouldn't show up because these are pretty dark red colors. Okay, same thing with this. Just throw a little bit of glue on the back of it, and we're going to pop it right in the center of the flower, offsetting it so that the petals are not fighting. You can see how that's starting to turn out already. It's beautiful. And then we've got a little stamen piece here, and what we can do is just kind of take and curl these in a little bit to give it a little extra dimension, so it's not just sitting there flat. And you can also just kind of take it, and once you've done that, just kind of curl it around in your fingers just to give it a little, breathe some life into it. And we'll just throw a little dot of glue on the back and pop that right in the center of the flower. I'm probably going to put some little pearls or some rhinestones in the center. There you have it. Okay, now I'm going to glue that right in the middle of the leaves. So I just throw some glue right there and try to get that as centered as you can. I'm going to use my dowel to hold that in place so that I don't crush these little stamens. They actually have a name, I forget what they're called. Pips, I think they're pips. Something like that. Okay, so there's our pretty flower, our beautiful poinsettia. Again, I'm going to use a foam square, and that's going to go right here. Now, one other thing too, actually, we're going to take some ribbon and thread it through here so that we create a little handle. And I'm going to put some bows on here as well. But before we do that, let's go back to the actual card itself. Now this is all nice and dry in here, and you can see as you open it, it makes it dimensional, which is really cool. Okay, so now what we need to do is we're gonna put glue on these two tabs here, each side. We're gonna slide this in, and the tabs, you want them folded away from you. It starts off like this, you fold them away from you. Okay, so they're facing towards the back of the card. We're literally just gonna slide this in. I'm gonna grab a dowel since it's really thin, but we're gonna slide it in. And once it's in there, I'm going to take a dowel and I'm going to push up against the side to help it take hold there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And actually, what really helps it stick completely is folding it down while it's still kind of in its drying process, because it does need to kind of find its seat and where it's going to sit and how it's going to sit. And sometimes you can't force that. You need to let it fold and do its thing. Okay, so just put glue on both sides here. And I am going to tack it up a little bit just to help it set quicker. Okay, again, make sure those tabs are pointing away from you towards the back of the card. And we're literally just going to slide this in. Slide it right in there. Make sure those tabs are touching the back of the card. Okay, nice and flush with the base. And I'm just going to take my dowel and push that up against the side. And then make sure again that it's nice and flush here. And that looks good. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to press down, make it flat and push it down here. This is where the tab is right here. And this is where the other tab is right here. That looks perfect. And there it is. Okay, so yeah, we need it to fold this way actually. So you got to fold it both ways, otherwise, and just press down, just force it. There it goes, beautiful. Give that a second to set before we start moving it around too much. Okay, there we go, beautiful. And those tabs are touching the back of the card. It's perfect. Okay, look at that beautiful little scene in there. You can see how the shadows from the snowflakes are kind of hitting that second layer. And that is it. Okay, so that's it for this card. Again, I'm gonna loop some ribbon through the little handles or the little holes there. Because essentially this is a little lantern with a scene in it, really cool. And we do want to put a little handle on our lantern. Okay, and these are not my fabric scissors, of course. Okay, so you're literally just going to, what I would do is I would thread it so that you can tie it off behind this thing. You don't want to tie it off in front. You want it to look pretty seamless from the front. Okay, and it's up to you how long you want to make your handle. I just make it proportionally, just, you know, make the size proportional to the actual card itself. I'm going to trim it about here just to make sure that I don't have enough to tie it off. Pop that in there. And let's see how big of a handle. Yeah, probably about there, I'd say. Something like that. And then again, just have to tie it off Just tie a little knot here, and that should hold it. If it doesn't, if you're using a really thin ribbon for some reason and it's not holding, you can always take just a little dot of hot glue. And let's see if that stays. Yeah, that may not stay. I mean, you double knot it, or like I said, you can always just take a little dot of hot glue and just pop it right there to make that ribbon stay. I bet a double knot will do it, and if not, again, I'm going to use, I'll use some hot glue to keep that in place. Maybe this knot here, look at that. Yep, there we go. So a little double knot, okay, and then again, you're going to tie off the other side as well. Just making sure that you got a good size, but not too big for the handle. Like I said, probably about yay big. So let's just tie that off. Right about, say right about there. And do a little double knot action. Bring that up to where that knot is. There we go. Perfect. I'd say that's a good size. Then we can trim that off. I'm also going to throw a couple of little bows on the front just to pretty it up even more. And again, worst case scenario, if you need to, just hit it with a little hot glue so that it definitely doesn't go anywhere. But there you go. There's the handle. We'll throw some bows on there, and don't forget to take and with some pop dots or a foam square, or you can glue it. That's fine. Either way, I'm going to use a 3D pop dot. Okay, so all that's left to do now is put together our envelope, and in between takes here, I went ahead and did a little bit of embellishing. You can see that I added some gold pearls to the center of the flower. Added some little rhinestones around the perimeter here. You could add one here, but you're not going to see it, so it's kind of pointless to waste it on that. And then added two little bows, two double loop bows to the back, to the base of the handle here, just to kind of jazz it up a little bit. A little rhinestone in the center there. And as I mentioned, all that's left to do is make our little envelope. It's actually probably one of the larger envelopes that we have, only because it's kind of an oversized card. So here is the main structure of our envelope. The actual side flaps are disconnected because you couldn't fit it on one sheet of paper, so we do need to attach those before we make our envelope. We'll start by just putting glue on the tab here, and I'll work that glue out to the edge. This is a symmetrical piece here, so it doesn't matter which side. And I would just put this flat on my table, push this up until it's nice and lined up, and then you just fold that tab over like that. I'm going to take it, flip it, and do the same thing on the other side. It's very simple. Get your glue on that tab. There we go. Line that up. Pardon my head. And just press that down. There we go. Okay. Now we've got this little secondary piece here, and what's going to happen is it's going to create kind of a nice little detail there on the edge of the flap here. You just want to make sure that when we do glue it, that you get it as centered as possible. I would just focus on looking at the tip of this and just making sure that it's centered with the tip of that. Okay, now a couple things we're going to want to do here, because this little snowflake is kind of delicate, and you definitely want to get just little dots of glue on the very tips of these. And then I'm going to do some dots around here, like that. and then kind of work that like that. And actually, we need to put glue on this. We don't want to put anything on the actual red piece here because, well, it's going to be sticking off a little bit. So take this piece, kind of slide it up to the fold, okay? And all we're going to do, make sure it's centered. We're just going to pop this down and just make sure that it's nice and centered there at that tip. There we go, like that. And press those delicate little areas into place. Push that down all the way around. And I've got one little area there, that guy right there, who's not sitting flat for me. So I'm just gonna grab a scrap piece of paper, just a tiny little bit of glue right there. Just slide it under, paint that glue underneath that piece, and get it nice and centered and press it down into place. There we go, beautiful. Okay, so our flap looks good. Now we can take this side and fold it in, and we're gonna take our glue, make sure this is nice and flat. We're gonna take our glue and just a nice thin line starting right about here and bring it all the way down. Same thing here. Bring it all the way down. And then fold the bottom up on top there, those little wings. And just press and hold that down until it's fully set. Okay. Give that a second to set. Don't jump the gun. There we go. And I think that's it. Let's see if there's any notes here. I'm gonna put some little gold pearls in the center here. So we just have to bring this in a little bit so that it fits into our envelope completely. And again, this is one that I would get a little bubble mailer or something. You can see, and that's, I mean, it's technically it fits, but I would almost not even put it in an envelope. I'd hand deliver it or put it into a bubble mailer or something like that, just to give it a little extra space so that it doesn't get ruined during transit. But there's a beautiful card, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, that does it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. It's probably one of my favorite cards. Probably my favorite card from this bundle, that's for sure. So anyway, I had a good time. I hope you did too. And if you did, please take a moment and head over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button while you're there. Hit the little bell so that you get notifications anytime we release a new product, whether it be a paid product, a freebie, as well as our wonderful tutorials. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the 21,000 plus other dreamers that will be working on their Christmas and July crafts, prepping for the holiday season. So head on over to your Facebook, do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can just type in this URL here directly into your web browser. It'll take you right there. But as always, I had a good time, and I hope you did too, and I look forward to crafting with you again.